Greeting colleagues, how are you doing today? Okay, let's take this journey, a journey of data analysis. Professor Simon Begikoza is my name, as you can see there. So the journey that we are taking today is that of what we call data analysis. So data analysis then is taking place after you have done your data collection. You start with your data collection, and then your next move is what we call data analysis. So let's now talk about what we call data analysis and see how far we can go with that. So data analysis then is the last part of your project. So in other words, you deal with your project, and then towards the end of your project, you will come to a stage where you start to say data analysis. So where does this thing start? Remember, it starts with your reviewing literature. As you can see down there, the reviewing literature. When you review literature, you review it. It will then produce what you call a theoretical framework or conceptual framework. So these are the two stages that are crucial in writing. Then once you establish that your literature, then you go to the next stage where you start to say, what research paradigm do I have to use here? Remember the section on paradigms? It's important because that paradigm, the paradigm that you identify, will help you to frame what you are doing in terms of your research. Then you will have to deal with the issues of methodology, where you choose a certain style or certain approach. So all those will be part of your first part of your research. Then after that, to identify techniques that you'll use in producing your data or in generating your data, which I'm sure you are aware of that now. Different methods where you can have interview, you can have a survey, you can have different. So once you come to this stage where you have your data, say you have your data now, boom, your data set. And now that you have your data, you need to start to refine it or to categorize it in a manageable way, manageable pieces. Once you have that, you will go to a stage where you start to code it, put some code on it nicely, then so that it will make sense. Then you'll go to the next level where you say, now, let me analyze those categories that I've used or codes that I've used. Then you present your data now in findings. It's no longer the data, it's your findings now, and which is the next stage. Then after your findings, then you critique those findings, which we'll call evaluation, discussion, or analysis, where you evaluate what you've done. Then once you have that, it will produce some nice themes here. Then your study is done. So your study will have all these features before you come to what you call your thesis or your dissertation or your paper, your research paper. All of them will follow the same pattern. But now, in terms of data analysis, we have three approaches that are dominating our educational research. Number one, we have qualitative approach. Others will say is qualitative methodological paradigm, but others will say it's an approach. You can use whichever term that is familiar to you. Then we also have what you call quantitative approach in doing analysis. And then we also have the mixed method, which you can also use in terms of your research. So then your analysis then will be influenced by one of these approaches according to your choice of the issues. So let's talk about the first one there, which is qualitative data analysis. Qualitative data analysis, it's when you analyze words, descriptions, concept, ideas, you explore them and describe what these are saying in terms of your findings. Remember, you have used different methods to generate data, because in qualitative research, we generate data or we produce data, but we don't collect or gather data. We just produce or generate data because we are part of it. We negotiate the data with our participants, or we read documents where we are reading documents in order to interpret the text. So in qualitative research, then usually we have different method of data analysis. But here I'll just highlight few of them that you may use in your analysis. The first one will be what we call content analysis. Content analysis, it's one of them. What is happening there then in terms of content analysis? Content analysis, it's about evaluating patterns in a piece of content or pieces of content. So you may have a book that was written by someone. So you want to see what the kind of ideology that is represented, or the kind of issue that is represented by the words that are presented in that book, or by that phrase or that image where you have pictures. So that's what we call content analysis. So you look for patterns in text or piece of content, then where you then started to make sense of it, and then tell us, what does it represent? What does this text represent? The next one then is what we call narrative analysis. A narrative analysis, it's about analyzing how stories are told. So in other words, your data, you go around, you generate stories. So you ask people to reflect on their experiences in order to produce stories. So those stories then will then be interpreted into findings. Then the method that we have used there is called narrative analysis. So you may use interviews for data collection, for data generation. You may use reflective journals to see how these people reflect around it. So then we generate stories. So your findings will be stories that are interpreted to produce findings. Then we also have what we call discourse analysis. Discourse analysis, it's about analyzing conversation and interactions, especially from politicians, or those who are strong believers of a specific culture, language, power. So it's about power. The conversation is around issues of power. Therefore, when you conduct that, or for example, you have books that were written by specific authors that present a certain conversation, you analyze that, you call that discourse analysis. Or so where you analyze conversation, debates around a certain issue. In fact, these produce a specific ideology. Therefore, you are analyzing the representation of that specific ideology. Then we also have what we call thematical analysis. Thematical analysis is where you look, it's like that content analysis, where you have your data, then you look for patterns and you categorize it into themes. Then you have some themes that flag or frame your particular discussion. Then when you move there, you also have what you call grounded theory or grounded analysis. Grounded analysis is where researchers may go to the site to generate data. After generating data, they use research questions. They don't have a specific theory which help them to categorize the data, but they only have research questions, and then the theory will be produced by the data. So the data will produce the theory. We call that grounded analysis. Then we also have where we are dealing with the phenomenological analysis. So this one is personal. It's where you deal with issues of unique personal experience about a specific phenomena. For example, maybe if you are saying you want to understand teachers' perception around the use of computers. So the perception will become the phenomena. Therefore, now you will then be trying to understand experiences or lived experiences of those individuals who are participating. They generate their unique experiences. Then you are interested in that phenomenology. Usually the paradigms that are used under this wing or under this approach, which is qualitative approach, we normally use interpretivist approach, or others may use critical approach. So critical approach, then it's saying, is there to liberate some participants who are participating in your research. And then interpretivist paradigm is representing the social experience of participants. And also then the researcher will then decide what experience should be presented as findings. But you'll just go back to the section on paradigms, then you'll see. But qualitative research or qualitative data analysis, the methods usually draw from interpretivist paradigm or critical paradigm. So those are the common ones that are normally shaping what we call qualitative data analysis. Then we then go to say qualitative approach again. When you continue with it, follows or focuses on an inductive reasoning or inductive process. So where you have your data and then you categorize it into pieces without necessarily being restricted by a certain theory. So what then normally happen in that inductive process or inductive reasoning is that researchers start by reading all set of generated data. They read them to get a sense of whatever ideas that are coming from there, and then they use those ideas to form what you call some concept or categories. So categories then may be identified as some specific topics that emerge from the data, and they represent what we call descriptive names of specific data. Say you have a paragraph, a chunk of different paragraphs, but you can see that in this paragraph or this sentence can be identified as, let's say, we generate a category that will say agreeing with the notion. So you find that in your data, you have sentences that will say, of course I do. So that part there will fall under agreeing with the notion. Maybe others will say yes. If they say yes, you see they still agree. Others may say agree 100%. You see they still agree. So those part of your data will then be representing this topic or category called agreeing with the notion. Therefore, once you have that, it means you have a theme or a certain theme that will say agreeing with the notion. So you list all of them then. So once you list them as a researcher, then you list them and check some duplicate, if there are duplicates that are existing there, and then you start to correct them so that you don't repeat certain idea in different topics. So you have them there, you avoid duplicates like that. So once you have that, you can start to code them to say, okay, this chunk of data, it's about agreeing, or this chunk of data, it's about goals of learning. Then once you have that in your qualitative research, then you will have your findings then that you can now start to describe and present accordingly. So the pieces that you have will be accorded, you'll code them according to your topics that we have selected, and then you have it like that. But however, in quantitative data analysis, then we take another direction, because here we follow what we call deductive process or deductive reasoning. Deductive process is where you have a specific theory, and then the theory will give you some categories. Those categories then will then be used for your data gathering or data collection. Here we use the term like data collection because the data are waiting for us out there. All what we do is just go there and collect. If we want to use maybe, for example, a questionnaire, we send a questionnaire to our respondents, and we don't call them participants, we say respondent. We send that to respondents, and then we then collect those questionnaires. We start to analyze. That's why we say data collection or data generation. So the method that we use here are for data gathering or data collection. Whereas in qualitative, we're using the term data generation and data production. So the language of your paradigm, it's important here. Usually then for this qualitative data analysis, we normally use paradigms like positivist paradigm, where we are saying there is one answer in everything. So this answer will be collected or will be understood on the basis of a specific theoretical framework. Then we understand it. So what do we do then here? So our data here, it's about numbers. We use numbers and statistics. So what is statistic then? Statistic, these are just procedures and rules for reducing large masses of data to manageable proportion of our findings. So when we reduce it into manageable parts, we call that statistics. So here we measure differences between variables and also relationships, usually where you may have to say drilling method is capable of producing learners with higher performance. So drilling method in this case, as an example, will be our dependent variable. And then student performance will be a dependent variable because it's dependent on the method that we have used. Therefore, this drilling method will be a dependent variable versus independent variable. So we distinguish between those variables. There are variables that are dependent on some other variables, and there are variables that are independent, like that example of teaching method as the dependent variable, and then performance of students as the dependent variable, because it will depend on how this method has been used in order for learners to generate the higher performance. So that's what we look at in terms of quantitative data analysis. And then we continue then to say, there are two types of statistics that we have when we deal with this. There is what we call descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics is the one where you deal with averages. So there are different types of averages. For example, for teachers normally look for average when they have their students. For example, their students have written some tests. They've written 5 tests. Now they want to average. They want the average of the 5 tests. So that average, in research, you may call that mean. It's a mean. So now that type of average called mean may be used to give the final marks of a particular student or a particular learner. So that is called now descriptive statistics. So other types of averages are divided into different categories. So, but they represent what we call descriptive analysis. So the first one normally is the mean, which is the average, general average, where you add all the tests, you divide that by the number of the tests. Or there's also a mode, where we say it's a mode. There's also a median. There's also a range. So those are different types of averages that are used by a researcher if they want to use descriptive statistics. But there's also another form of statistics called inferential. Inferential is where you take a sample of your large population. For example, if you have 1,000 participants, but now you don't want to include all of them, you will then infer or sample maybe 100 of them. You sample 100 of them, which we can call infer. That will then produce what we call inferential statistics. So that's what quantity data analysis it's about. It also, when it comes to questioning, it asks about how many of those, how much. So it needs numbers. So remember here, we said this, it's about numbers, statistics and numbers. Therefore, that's why it will make sense when you ask questions like, how many students were there? How many people were interested in that? What percentage of this? You see, we deal with those. So we have then that what you call quantitative data analysis. And then we also have a mixed method where we mix qualitative issues and quantitative issues. So what will be the issues of quantitative is where we'll be dealing with numbers. And then the qualitative, that's when we'll be dealing with text, words that will be describing. Usually when we use this mixed method, we normally use what we can call a conceptual framework. A conceptual framework is where you borrow some concept from different theories. But if you deal with theoretical framework like this one, a theoretical framework will represent, will have a specific theory. That theory will give us some concept which we can use to flag the data or to frame our data. So when it comes then to mixed method, then we normally use a paradigms like a pragmatic paradigm. Pragmatic paradigm, it's a paradigm which will say each individual participant has his own experience. So that experience will be used to analyze what we are doing. So in other words, people have their own internal intelligence. Therefore, when we conduct a study, we may conduct, if those individuals are influenced by quantitative issues, we'll bring them in. If they're influenced by qualitative issues, we'll bring them in. So the need of that individual participant will guide us in deciding what kind of data we may be looking for. If we are looking for qualitative, according to the need of those participants, we'll bring qualitative. If we need quantitative, we'll bring quantitative according to the need of those participants. So the paradigm that is common then when we use mixed method, which combine qualitative and quantitative, is normally is called pragmatic paradigm. Pragmatist believes that each individual has his own internal intelligence. Therefore, people must be allowed to reflect on those internal intelligence that shape their experiences in order to decide whether to use quantitative data or qualitative data. So the need of the situation decide what we need to have there according to that. So that's a mixed method type of that. And then again, so when you have an example of a theoretical framework, if, for example, you want to use a theoretical framework, a theoretical framework may come like this, where you have to use components or principles of the theory to generate your data or to collect your data. So which will then give us a deductive reasoning, a deductive process. So quantitative studies will always start with a theoretical framework, which will tell them exactly what to collect. So if for example, the issue here is about the effective of natural identity in teaching mathematics. So what you'll have then, you'll borrow this theory, and then your questions or your questionnaire, if you send a questionnaire to your respondents, so it will then, you'll ask questions like this. One question will have this, another question will have how they construct knowledge. Another one, it will be about how they see the outcomes. The other one, it will be on the social media site. And the other question will be the who are we dealing with here. So you'll have all these categories or principles of this theory producing your questionnaire or your instrument for your data collection. So you collect your data, and then when you analyze it, you will analyze it according to the data, according to these frames, because these frames represent objective reality of natural identity according to this theory. So this theory is representing that. So that's what we call a theoretical framework, which we use when we analyze. So when we analyze, then analysis then start as early as when you write your literature review. When you write your literature review, you will start to analyze your study. As you can see here, the issue is about experiences of using social media site. So here's this example which says social media sites may influence students' performance, especially in mastering content of their modules, with an aim of linking it to summative assessment experiences. So then you continue to synthesize the studies, you see, because you have gone through different studies. Now you have synthesized them into one idea. Now you can see this one is supporting what is said in the previous sentence, where they state that social media site expose a student to blah, blah, something like that. And then you can see that the same other studies are still supporting, where it says note that the two authors note that social media site are this, like that. And then you go on in your literature, writing, but the moment you start to bring these now, it means you are now analyzing your data. So data analysis is not only when you go to the end of your study, but you study as early as this, because you can see here the red part is the analysis of studies in your literature review. So now when you do that, then you can do it and continue with it, but a specific example then of your data analysis, when you have your data, let's leave that of the literature, because this is how you analyze your data in terms of writing your literature. But when you analyze your data that you have, you may come up with something like this, where you start to say, the findings, the first part, here are the findings or results. We say findings if we deal with qualitative studies, but when we deal with quantitative studies, we call them results. So here are the results then. The first part of the results. 80 students were interested in accounting, and only 20 students were interested in maths and science. So now those are the findings, the first part of our finding. Then you go to the next level now of analyzing them now to say, let's analyze the findings. The findings reveal that students who were interested in accounting were 4 times more than students who were interested in maths and science. You can see now, we are now analyzing, interpreting this for our readers. But we don't end there. We have to continue now to evaluate, the critical evaluation of those findings. You remember in my first slide, I indicated that you have what you call evaluation discussion or critical evaluation. So we may critical evaluate then the findings now to say we have that level of our analysis before we send them for conclusion to form some themes or whatever we want to display there, or graphs or that. So now this suggests that the school system may produce more chartered accountants than engineers, because chartered accountants are mostly produced by those who are interested in accounting. You see now, that's how we analyze. So data analysis then, it's where we present the data to have some meanings to our readers. So that's how we then project our analysis. Maybe I can give just an example here to say, if you were to investigate a number of pretty people in pictures that are displayed somewhere. So what do you do? What do you need then? You need research questions. You need a purpose, that the purpose of the study is to investigate the number of pretty people found in the pictures. And then you start to say, let me ask some questions then around this, because these are pictures then. Let me ask a quantitative question so that I'll quantify this. So I'm saying now, what is the number of pretty people found in the pictures? So the method of data collection here will be, because remember, this is a quantitative question, therefore we are saying data collection. So we'll be counting, which means we'll take the pictures, which is photo voice. You can say, call this photo voice. And then we have this descriptive question where we describe the number of these participants. And then we go for a qualitative question as well. So which means you can see here that I'm trying to use a mixed method of data analysis. So in this study that I'm proposing here. And then now once I have that, I will have a question that will represent a qualitative way of doing things, where we say, how does the number of pretty people presented in the pictures? So we'll then observe them, how they presented, we'll observe them, which is an operational question, because when we observe them, we see the operation. This is how they are positioned. And then when we move then to another qualitative way, but even quantitative studies may include this, where you ask, why do the pictures have particular number of pretty people? So there you have to interview the designers of those pictures so that you generate a philosophical data. So we have a philosophical question where you interview individuals. So examples then of those pictures then, remember, or before we come to the pictures, we first have to come up with a theory. Theory, which is the theoretical framework, a theory of pretty people. We cannot do without a theory of those pretty people. So we need a theory of pretty people in order to find the pretty people in our research, so that when we analyze our data, we analyze the and find the number that we need according to our research question, the purpose of the study. So here's the frame then. Maybe the frame will say they are women. So frame one, check if they are women. Frame two of the theoretical framework is to say they should have dark or long hair. If they have dark or long hair, it means they are pretty. And then they should be 1.6 meters tall. So they shouldn't be taller than 1.6 meters, or shorter than that's 1.6 meters. So now when you go to there, you then start to look at the pictures. Here are the pictures. Then you ask yourself, do we have people here? I'm sure others may not see people. They may say, no, there are no people here. But if you look carefully here, we have this verse. And then when you look at here, you can see that it's a picture of a person there, which will go there, go there, go there, go there. You can see a person there. And then you go there. So you start to say, aha, there's a person there. So remember your frame then to say, is this a lady? Is this a woman? And then does this person have long hair, etc., according to that. If this person is not a lady, or the other one, this side is also not a lady, then we don't use this picture. Then we'll simply say, no, we don't have people here, therefore we only have a verse. But if we can identify people immediately, we start to say, are they women? Do they have long hair or dark hair? What about their height? Then we take it from there. But for here, then that's where you need to be careful when you analyze. And then here, then you ask yourself again, do we have people here? And then others will say, yes, we have this grandmother and grandfather. Then if you have grandmother here, and then others will say, and we also have another grandmother here who is carrying something there. And then someone is on the tower there as well. and then there's a lady in here. That's why you start now, because this is a grandfather, so you don't count men. You take, and then the grandmother in the bigger picture, you also don't count that. So you count what you can see as those that are identified as women, and then you go back to the frame to say, do they have this? So in your analysis, first, count all women, have all of them. And then the next step, in each of the pictures, you look at how these women are represented in these pictures. This one is represented coming from the door. This one is coming from there. Then that's how they are represented. Then why are they represented like that? Maybe because this one is taller than this door, and the door is only 1.6 meters. Therefore, that's why she is represented in particular way. So you see, when you analyze, you go deeper to all those issues that may then give you a clear picture of what you are doing. But be careful in making sure that in your analysis, you look for details in such a way that those details will help you to give a clear picture, something that is closer to objective reality of that particular thing. And then you may have another one here where others may not see that while you may have this man, this old man, we may also have some pictures of small people there where you can have those. The eyes of this person are there, etc. And then you may have another one there, another one sleeping up there, another one there. So, but if you are not paying attention, you may not see those images and then think that no, it's only old men here, therefore we cannot count a number of pretty people here. There are no pretty people because it's just a man. According to our frame, we should have women. And then we start there. And then when you go to the next one, others here may only see a bigger picture of a grandfather there who is drinking beer. But others who have been trained to be careful and make sure that they look at the details of their data, they may start to identify ladies there to say, oh, there's a lady there standing there. There's a lady there sitting on the rock. There's a lady sitting there. And then here it's a jacuzzi in front of them. Then you start to say, aha, let's start to count. Here's a lady, here's a lady, here's a lady. Already you have 3 ladies here. Now we'll have to go to the next part of our criteria to see to it if they are they can be included as pretty people. But for now, at least we do have 3. And then when you come to here, you identify more and more and more and more all the way. But make sure that you don't sink on the data and miss the details. The details are always important in terms of what we are trying to present. Therefore, good people, I think we may then end there our data analysis, but our data analysis may be quantitatively driven or qualitatively driven, or they may also be following what you call mixed method. You read about that, and then when you present your data, you have different types of analysis that you may use. And then qualitative data will use text and descriptions, but quantitative data will use numbers. So when you combine those, they may form what you call mixed method. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. You may then read more on the issues of data analysis. For now, thank you very much. Bye-bye now.